What's up? What's up? Good afternoon. What's going on? Well, nothing going on in the markets, that's for sure. Pretty quiet, pretty quiet. But again, we're getting closer. We're what, 70 days from either freedom or communism. So let's see what happens here. A lot of stuff going on. China's in trouble, but nobody cares. Destroyed a lot more jobs. Nobody cares. So, again, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Markets are extremely quiet, which is not to be unexpected, which we talked about last week, and all along that it's going to be quiet, and of course it is. There's no real reason to believe that there's going to be any real business this week because it's a holiday week. It's Labor Day is next Monday, and there will be no call next Monday. So it'll be 2 weeks from tonight when we come back. But at the end of the day, it's very quiet. We're still leaning to the upside, but the news is not very good. But again, we don't trade the news. We just kind of observe it. But is the economy in good shape? Is that why they're cutting rates? Because the economy is in good shape? Or are they cutting rates because the economy is in bad shape? So, that's a question that you have to, figure out, right? It looks like all the grains are going, well, it looks like they're going lower. This is the biggest short position in the grain market since 2019. There are over 700,000 contracts short right now, and adding to it. Okay. Have you in 45 years trading ever seen the Fed do a soft? No, the Fed's stupid. They don't know how to do a soft landing. Okay. The Fed has no clue. Listen, the Fed is still operating as if it was 1913. I've given this analogy before. The Federal Reserve and the Model T came out the same year. Okay. Well, how have cars progressed and how has the Fed progressed? The Fed has continued their mantra to steal from their people. Okay. All right. The question is, are they really, truly a private organization? And the answer is no, they're not. They're directly tied to the government. Okay. So, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Again, it is what it is. And this country is in bad shape. You can like it. You can say it's not. Hey, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm telling you what I think. Okay. And I certainly, it ain't going to hurt me. Okay. My life isn't going to change one bit, no matter what they do. Okay. But to me, if I had kids, I'd be freaking worried. And I do have kids, so I am worried. Okay. I think we got a big pile of shit here right now. Okay. And I think they're taking and they're taxing you. And the reason that they're cutting rates, okay. You want to hear my theory of why I think they're cutting rates? Any of you interested in my theory? Not that I won't go through it. Okay. Because you've heard the terms, the hidden tax of inflation. If they cut rates, it is not going to help inflation. It's going to spike it higher. Okay. And remember, there's a portion of everything you buy that has federal tax on it. So if you're paying a percentage on federal tax, doesn't that mean, okay, well, that's another thing to get her elected. But at the end of the day, you're paying more tax dollars. You may not realize you're paying more tax dollars, but when you go to the gas station, you go to the grocery store, that inflation is more tax that the government collects. Okay. So call it what you will, think of it what you might. Okay. But at the end of the day, it is the hidden tax of inflation. That's the bottom line. Okay. That's all I can tell you. Okay. That's what it's telling you. And that's what they're doing. Okay. You may not like it. Is gold the only thing you can? No, you can hedge with that. You can hedge with options. You can hedge your equity portfolio with options. You know about that. I mean, I'm not getting out of my equities. Okay. They'll keep up with inflation. Remember, they go up 8.5% year over year. So, at the end of the day, price controls on food, there's no way. We know that price controls don't work. I mean, that's a crock. Okay. Look, we know that both sides of the aisle are somewhat crooked. Okay. Does anybody have any problem with that? Both sides of the aisle are somewhat crooked. Is there anybody who argue with that? I'm not picking a side. They're criminals. Okay. I mean, I know a guy that was willing to spend $40 million to get elected to a $200,000 a year job. Why would he do that? Because they're criminals. Okay. So at the end of the day, it's whatever can keep the government floating. Someday it would be nice to see somebody put their foot down and say, no more spending. Okay. No more spending in Ukraine. No more shipping money to China. No more supporting Iran, Iraq, and the whole bullshit. But hey, it's not going to happen. So, under the current way that we do business, it's not going to happen. Okay. The only way it can happen, we have Ron Paul's, but they can't get in, right? The only way it can happen is if the voters vote out these assholes, okay, and force term limits so that we can't be stuck with a guy like Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell for 50 years. Okay. Politicians, the office was not meant to be a career. Okay. If you go back to the farmers who started this whole country, okay, they served a couple of terms, 1 term, 2 terms, they were back to the farm. But anyways, again, like I said, I think it's a horrible thing. I think we're in a lot of trouble. And I think that you've got 70 days to decide if you want to continue in the same direction and become a communist country, because certainly that is the direction that we're headed. It's communist, socialist, fascist, Marxist, they're all the same. Okay. But anyways, Connie, I know you're ready, but I'm going to ask anyways. It's a polite thing to do. Are you ready? But you can't buy the $1 million how on the beach with farming. Yeah. Well, $1 million house on the beach with farming. Well, that's true, but you could. Okay. If prices were fair, you could. Okay, because farmers do make a lot of money. It's usually stowed in their land, and acreage is at all-time highs. Okay. What will take for Trump to win? Well, he's the favorite right now to win in the betting market. What does that mean? I don't know. What it'll take, in my opinion, is a fair count. But I don't know that we'll get that either. Anyways, the dollar, Delta X-ray. Now, we don't trade the dollar anymore. And again, I remind you, it has nothing to do with whether or not we like the dollar or we're against the dollar. It has everything to do with we have to pay extra money to trade the dollar through one of the New York exchanges, and screw them. I wouldn't give them 2 cents. Okay. But we would be short dollars. Okay. And at the end of the day, I would think that you still have 102 would still be resistance support. I suppose you got to look now down here about 100, about par, we'll call it. That is known in the industry, that is known as par. That would be the next support level, but it looks like we're headed a lot lower still. And again, this is obviously more contrived and more manipulated through the government, okay, and through the central banking system. Yeah, this is globally, not just here. The fiat currency system is a criminal system to begin with. How are we ever going to get term limits? Because the first thing you got to do is vote out the imbeciles that are in it. Okay, it's going to take. Listen, here's my opinion. It's going to take a revolt. Okay, again, do we have enough gumption to do that again? I don't know, but that's what it's going to take. Okay. Anyways, the euro currency, 6 echo, which we are long. Okay. Again, I would think that you've got some support around 111. And I do think that you are very much overbought. Look, I would advise you 112.50 will be the resistance. I would advise you this week to be very careful. I don't think that you want to get too overly involved in here. Okay. I think that you've got a market that is going to be very quiet. You already see that volume levels are way down. Okay. So I don't think that you want to get overly involved here. I would look, the only kind of trades I would look at this week, okay, other than if you're trying to day trade, like if you day trade with me in the morning, but the only trades I'd be looking at are things like this. And I'm not saying that I would necessarily get involved, but I would only be looking for things that were way extended, either up or down. I don't care which side. All I want is the highest probability of winning because it's very overbought or very oversold. Okay. But again, if you said to me, I'm going to sit it out this week, I would be proud of you because that would make sense. I'd like to sit it out this week. And if I didn't have to trade every morning, I would. I'd be out. Okay. In the meantime, the notes. Okay. And notes, we are long. Okay. Now, again, remember, when I give you the position, it doesn't mean that that's what we were today. The direction is long. We were long today. They were a little bit lower, but either way, it really hasn't changed. You're still basically 112 to 114, with 113 still being the key to watch, right? You came down to that level and you bounced off of it. Okay. So 113 could actually be considered potentially support here. Okay. Again, I'm not looking to get too overly involved here. I don't see a lot of reason. That's one thing I want you to remember. Oh, they're closed. Okay. So, and the bonds, which we would be short, okay, again, they're really just stuck. I mean, I think you're still 126 and I think you're still 122. We're kind of in the middle. Okay. We were flat today. Okay. So again, it's not anything to be concerned about, because we will be with what the very closest trend is like. So again, I don't see much going on here. It looks pretty quiet, looks pretty crappy. And of course it was for most of the day. I mean, there wasn't a lot of overall activity. Bitcoin, which we were long. And again, it's really, when you look at the big picture, it's really 52,000 to 72,000. And you want to narrow it down, you're now 56 to 68. Okay. But it's really just one big consolidation since back in February. Okay. We're really just churning around, not really going much of anything. And of course, Bitcoin does its thing like any other market, and consolidation can be narrow. It can be wide sweeping consolidation. That we don't know. We don't predict what kind of consolidation. We can just recognize it. Now, certainly in a range like this, there is more opportunity than in a very narrow range. So if you looked at it in a range like this, you could do that. Okay. That is something that you could look at. Bitcoin looks a bit like gold chart. Does that mean? Well, I do believe, okay, that if you're looking at a stored asset, okay, stored asset values, I believe they're very similar. Now, a lot of people don't buy into or believe in cryptocurrency, okay, or Bitcoin specifically. I would compare them as similar, but the one big difference, obviously, is gold or silver you can hold in your hands. Okay, Bitcoin, you're holding a thumb drive or whatever, right? But again, I would think that they are similar. And remember this, that if you're in a communist country trying to get out and you've got thousands of dollars or ounces worth of gold, you can't just walk out with that. The only way you can get out is with crypto. So there are some cases that be made for that as well. But in the meantime, look, I do believe in crypto in a small basis. I do think it's real. I think it's going to be part of our economy. And I think that the more that the Federal Reserve screws around in here, the more fans become of the crypto world, because it is an independent market that does not count on a central bank. Gold, again, gold looks breaking out. Now, this was very similar, and you can see it is breaking out, making new highs again. I mean, there's, the assholes are out again talking about 5,000 gold. Look, to me, it's got to get through 2,600. Then maybe I could see 2,700 to 3,000 by the end of this year. I think a lot depends on how it trades out and what goes on. But remember, this whole rally recently has been on pretty light volume. Okay. So I'm not really, like, I like it. And I've said it on every appearance I've ever made recently that I like gold. I think you're still 2,500 to 2,600 though. But even with crypto, they can probably hack your account. Well, again, there's cold wallet. I don't want to get into this whole crypto discussion because I don't understand it all that much myself, but I understand there's cold wallets that nobody can get into. Now, is that true? I have no idea. Again, I'm just telling you that I wanted to buy crypto in 2010. The Badger, my ex-partner, unfortunately, who passed away, objected. So I said, okay. And of course, we usually screwed around with a couple of thousand. Well, that couple of thousand be worth 100 million. Of course, we wouldn't still be in all of that. But anyway, long and short is, I've been a believer in it from the beginning, but I never bought it until like 2016. Since I've been talking on this call, whatever it is, because I always disclose what I have. In the meantime, 2,500 to 2,600 in silver and gold. Silver looks like it's trying to break out. We would have been long silver. We were long gold as well. Again, silver is getting a little bit overbought. You're also at the top end of some resistance. Again, I would not be a fresh new buyer here today, okay, based on where it is on this chart, okay, because it is extended and it is at resistance. I wouldn't be a seller. I'm not telling you to get shorted. I mean, I'm a big believer. I think silver will get into the mid-30s this year. But at the end of the day, I would rather buy it if it was breaking out, okay, and miss a little bit, or I'd rather be buying it back down somewhere towards the mean, about $1 lower than where it's at now. Either of those events can occur, but I'm not going to chase it because I know markets, and we've all watched them. Those of you who've been here the longest, you know that the lines I put on these charts are there all year. Okay, and I don't erase them until January. So you know what the markets do. You know what we're doing. So in the meantime, I would say for today, 28.50 to $30, and we're right up at 30, which is again would be resistance. But again, when I give you a resistance level or a support level, that is not an automatic sell or buy at that level. That is when it gets to that level, look at it, see what the action looks like, and see if you can make some money on that trade basis the level I gave you. Those are not automatic levels because everything depends on how it trades once it gets to that level. I tell you guys every week, but I'm reminding you. Okay. In platinum, which we don't trade anymore, but again, it's still 920 to 1,000. It hasn't really changed. Okay. Again, a lot of things haven't changed because the markets haven't really changed much. Copper, hotel, golf, okay, and of course, in copper we were long today. It was up a little bit. It's breaking up, but again, I'm not thrilled where it's at, and I certainly wouldn't be a new buyer right now. If I was looking to take a position in copper, I'd rather take one to the short side, and that's only because of the positioning of the chart. It has nothing to do with the overall. Okay, I would think that you're looking at 425 is your resistance level. Okay, and I think 400 or $4, but you really want to watch here. It's 425, about 412 and a half is where I'd be watching, and $4 should be the bottom end. Okay, you don't have to write all that down, Connie. Just to, there's always a level when you start getting a little bit wider away. There's always a level in between. Some people call them the pivots, whatever you want to call it. That's what you're calling. Okay, but that's an area to watch if it does break. Now it may not break, but if it does break, that's where I'd be watching. The grains are just awful. Okay. Look, we're oversold. As I told you earlier, this is the largest short position since 2019. It's over 700,000 contracts that are short and being added to as we speak. I don't think anything's going to break them out this week. I would find it hard to believe that we could have something come out this week. But I would think that, again, I think you will see at some point a pretty nasty short squeeze. But in the meantime, farmers are losing money. Okay. They pay too much for inputs. They pay too much for money, and they can't make any money at 350 corn or 380 corn, whatever it is. They can't make any money. Okay. Even if they're not losing. And again, obviously this depends on where you're farming. If you're farming in the prime land, you got a shot. But if you're farming in South Dakota or North Dakota, you got no shot. Okay. In the meantime, look, I guess we'll use 520. Now, again, personally, I have a separate account that I own some of this stuff in. We're shorted. Okay. We were flatted today, but we're shorted. Okay. But I think it's really 520 to 560. Okay. In wheat and in corn, I can't, there's not even a level. This is a low that hasn't been seen forever. Okay. There really is no support. Okay. If you buy this, you're buying it because you believe it's overbought, and you believe there's a bounce coming. Now, I could certainly make that case, and certainly, now again, I don't think that I'm going to do anything this week in this space other than the normal trade. But if there were any business, I'd probably be a buyer. Okay, I certainly wouldn't be a seller down here. Okay. Again, I'm not saying that it's going up, but I'm saying the probability that there's going to be some retracement here. I mean, this has been down 4 out of the last 5 days, and basically has come straight down from 390 to 360. I would expect to see some sort of a bounce. Okay. Pretty soon it's worth to buy corn from the farmers and process it yourself. Yeah. So for Kanye, I put 380 resistance. I got no support. 380 resistance, I have no support. And soybeans look like they may have found a bottom. I'm not predicting a bottom, but they do look, and this is a pattern we've looked at often, that it does show that potentially you are seeing some bottoming action. Does it mean they're going to go up? I have no idea. But certainly, I would not be selling into this pattern. Okay. I think that you've got a greater chance. And I certainly, if it came back to 960 or 965, I might have to take a shot. But in the meantime, we are also, after being oversold, we're coming back to the mean. I think the bottom line is we're looking at 960 to $10 right now as the support and resistance levels, which, as you're noticing, the levels are narrowing every week as to where support and resistance are, which means that there's a greater probability of a bigger move. Now, that bigger move can be in either direction. It doesn't have to be up. It doesn't have to be down. It could be in either direction. Based on the current chart, forget about what I just said about bottoming, but based on the bigger picture, the big move should be down. But I can recognize in my mind that there's some bottoming action very similar to what we've seen here. We saw a little bit of a pop. Here, we saw a little bit of a pop. Now, again, when I say bottoming, I don't mean it's the bottom and it's going straight up. I mean, it's an opportunity to be a potential player for a day, 2, 3, or a week, whatever. Okay, does that make sense? Cattle, I remain short. I told you I'm not covering. I got a stop in mind. I'm not getting out. And of course, today's rally, I think, was nothing more than an oversold market rallying. And I don't care. If it gets back to 180, I'll sell some more. Okay, because I'm taking this with me. Because I think that I don't know how the economy can support it. I think you're now at 174 to 178, 174 to 178. Okay. Feeders, which I don't trade, but they're still stuck in a range, 240 to 248. Hogs, these are February, by the way. There are October and December before that. They should pull back a little bit. They've had a nice little rally from 68 to 73. I would expect to pull back. They're still pretty much in a downtrend. Now, you could make a case that you might have a little bit of a W type of pattern forming here, which would make kind of sense. Again, my theory is that I see I don't think the consumer, in my opinion, can't afford to buy stick. Okay. I don't know how it stays up here so long. Okay. And it's not back in the 140s, but in the meantime, it's not. But I think the trade is to sell cattle and buy hogs. But this is potentially a fairly bullish pattern, but we are extremely extended. And you have to remember that markets are going to take a breath. They're going to pull back or they're going to rally depending on which direction they're headed in. Okay. Now, this is very, very tricky right here. And what makes it even more tricky now is the time of year. You got the slowest week of the year. I would venture to say that this week and the week between Christmas and New Year's are both pretty damn slow. And there's not a lot of great opportunity to play in. And I think if you put yourself in position in these slow markets, you're really putting yourself in more jeopardy than you are putting yourself in a positive. Does that make sense? I know a Wisconsin dairy farm owes $1.5 million to the bank. The bank sold his note to a private investment firm. They were foreclosing to take his land. It makes sense, probably owned by the Chinese. They want to control the fund. They want to control the food anyways. Listen, you think that they're not buying farmland? You don't think Bill Gates isn't in their pocket, who's the largest owner of farmland? Natural gas. We're getting close to that point. You might want to take a shot. Now, this is kind of working out kind of neat. Okay, we're short. Okay. Now again, if it can get to 180, I'd be a blind buyer. This is one product. If this gets to 180, you want to work an order at 180, I would do that. Okay. But now we're getting into that time of the year. You know, it's already September, right? Next week is September. And all of a sudden you can start to get some cold snaps, the fall weather, and you can get that sudden demand. You know, that optionsellers.com went busted in October. Okay, that year. If this gets to 180, I'm a buyer. Okay, it is extended to the downside. I would expect a little bit of a rally. I think you're 180 to 220. But again, if we get to 180, I'm a buyer in a separate account. Oh, it's been this low many times. Here, it was this low in 2020. Okay, it's been low, but again, it doesn't really matter. Okay, again, it's gonna make some movement, and again, I would. This is one that if you want to gamble, now remember, they do call natural gas the widowmaker because it is thin and it can move a lot. I would certainly, at these prices, I would find it hard to initiate a new short position. Okay, but at 180, I'm going to be a buyer. Okay, and I'm gambling. I'm clear as I can be. Okay, I'm playing for the move, for a cold snap, for anything. Okay, crude oil, which we were short. Okay, we were flat today, but we were short, and again, it got to very oversold. And look what happened. Bang. 3 days in a row, straight up. Now, again, we're going to reverse this. Now, I don't know that we'll be in tomorrow or we'll be flat. But again, I don't think the range itself has changed. I think we're still looking at, 74 to 82, 74 to 82. Okay. And again, you can see how fast this can move. It just went from 70 to 77, 3 days. Okay. So, remember, when these markets are thin, okay, they can move a lot farther. When there's nobody in the way. I'll give you a quick floor story. When markets were a little crazy or really thin, we as market makers were compelled, if you were in the pit, to have to make a market. Okay. So what did we do? Well, we'd step outside the pit until we wanted to come back in and make markets. So there's sometimes you can see these moves that are so big because there's nobody in the way stopping them. Does that make sense? Okay, the sauce, which we don't trade anymore, but again, I do give you the idea. We would be short cocoa, okay, and the levels haven't really changed. I would think 70 to 90 is still the same. Cotton looks awful, but again, to me, this is probably an area I'd look at it, but really it's now 65 to 72. Sugar, nice little pop. It came right off, look at it, right off the oversold, right to overbought. I think you're looking at like 1920 as resistance. And that's 19.2 cents and 17.6 cents as a potential buy. And coffee really churning its way higher. Okay. Coming to some resistance up here. Again, these are very thin, and I don't want anybody really trading these. Okay. Unless you got a lot of money and you understand these markets, you don't belong trading. Okay. But I do give you the level with and OJ for sure. You don't belong. Nobody should be trading OJ unless it's a part of a big fund. Okay. Because again, it's for you, for the individual, without an idea, you're trading in a very thin market. Okay, and we've actually eliminated these for those particular reasons. Okay, and lumber. Look, we don't trade lumber. You cannot trade lumber. There is no liquidity. Okay, but it is something I look for as a bellwether of the economy. Now it's interesting. This week lumber is lower. Okay, and copper is going higher. So where's my read? Are the softs primarily just for producers like orange farmers? The softs are for the criminals in New York, the trader criminals in New York. They're kind of like the meats in Chicago. They have a country club. They trade at odd hours, and they always take care of the family there. Okay. They are tradable. Okay. Again, I would trade them. I've traded coffee many times. Okay. Before, I've been trading coffee for 40 years. Okay. But it's more of a country club event, and if you're not part of the family, you don't get anything. And they can be thin, and again, they traded out hours. Okay. The only time you'd want to look at anybody that you'd want to look to trade in the soft commodities is when they got so extended one way or the other. And the best way to be extended is when they're extended to the downside, because certainly you're a lot more comfortable holding a long position of, let's say, I mean, I bought coffee at 40 cents once. It's now 280. Yeah, but if you're buying something that is very inexpensive, that the entire risk of the whole contract is X versus being short, because we all know that the short bothers people a lot more because they can continue to go higher, right? That's the one thing, if you buy it, it can only go to zero. Okay. But if you're going up, so your apprehension is a lot greater if you're short something. Okay. But I would have, for example, if coffee rallied back to 350, I'd have no problem selling. Okay. I wouldn't even think twice about it. I would sell it at 350. Okay. Anyways, any questions on part one before we flip over to part two? I know there's some new folk here. Any questions? Don't be shy. You're welcome to ask. I'll answer anything. China's been buying copper, but why? Well, they own the copper exchange. Okay. And in China, you can borrow money with copper. Okay. You can use that as collateral. So they want to keep the price higher, keep their banks in straight. Okay. Because China's got a lot of issues financially. That would be my only guess. Gold and silver look great, but they're both a little bit overbought, but they both look good. So here, I'll give you a quick flip into your late. Here, gold looks great, but again, I would suspect that, I mean, it's 2,500 to 2,600, but I think it's going to probably pull back a little bit here in the next couple of days. And silver is starting to rally. We're going to reverse it, or we are long it. And I think it's a little bit overbought, but I wouldn't get too anxious here. Well, China's economic system is breaking down. Okay. They've got their consumer funds are no good. Earnings show stocks recovery is way off. Okay. So
you know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.